The crowd gasped. The microphone squealed with a sharp eek, as Karen's shrill voice cut through what should have been the proudest moment of the graduating class. "This whole ceremony is a sham," she screeched, her words echoing across the gymnasium like nails dragged on metal. Parents froze mid-cheer. Students stood stunned in their gowns, and for a beat, everything fell silent. How did it come to this? How did one woman think she had the right to hijack an entire graduation? I swear, I could feel the air tighten, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. I was there, front row, watching my younger brother clutch his diploma with trembling fingers, his eyes darting toward the stage in disbelief. His name had just been called. His dream moment, stolen. My mom gripped my arm so tight I could feel her nails dig in. "Not today," she whispered, her voice shaking with anger. Karen. God. She wasn't even a parent of a graduate. She wasn't on the program. She wasn't supposed to be anywhere near that mic. And yet, there she was, standing at the podium, hijacking the moment like she owned the place. "Your kids are being brainwashed," she cried, her voice cracking with some strange mix of rage and desperation. "This school is corrupt. These diplomas mean nothing." "Is she serious right now?" Someone behind me muttered. Heads turned. Whispers rippled. Cameras came up. Oh yeah, people were recording. Every second of her meltdown was being captured. I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't just embarrassing. It was robbery. She was robbing every single student of their memory. I stood, my chair scraping back against the polished floor with a squeak that made a few parents glance my way. My brother's eyes locked on mine, silently begging me not to let her ruin this. Security hesitated at first. Maybe they thought she'd calm down. But Karen didn't calm down. She doubled down. She slapped the podium with her palm, the thud booming through the speakers. "You should all be ashamed. You're celebrating lies." Gasps. Murmurs. One grandmother covered her ears. A little kid started crying. The whole gym buzzed with an energy that was half chaos, half outrage. And that's when I stepped forward. "Hey." My voice came out louder than I expected, shaky but firm. Karen whipped her head toward me, eyes blazing, like I had no right to even speak. But oh, I wasn't backing down. "Not today. This isn't your moment," I said, teeth clenched. "This isn't your stage. Sit down." She barked a laugh, sharp and mocking. "Oh, look, another sheep defending the herd. You don't even know what's happening in your own community." Her words stung, not because they were true, but because she was using them to poison the air. Parents around me started clapping for me, not her. That threw her off. You could see it in her twitching jaw, the flicker of doubt. But she wouldn't let go of the mic. Then came the twist. She started calling out names. Actual names of kids graduating. Exposing little personal details she shouldn't even know. How did she get that info? Chilled me. "Tyler Johnson, your father owes thousands in taxes." She yelled, and you could hear the collective inhale of the audience. Tyler's dad slumped down, face red with shame. And don't even get me started on the administration. Corruption runs deep. Couldn't believe it. She turned this into a witch hunt. This wasn't just a tantrum anymore. This was targeted humiliation. My hands trembled. My mom whispered, "Oh God, she's gone too far." The principal finally moved, striding toward her with a tight, furious smile. But Karen twisted away, clutching the mic like it was her lifeline. "Don't you dare silence me," she shrieked. And then, finally, security surged in. 2 guards in navy blazers closed in on her, their radios crackling with static. Karen fought. She fought hard. She kicked one in the shin, elbowed the other in the ribs. The mic screeched again as she screamed, "I have the right to speak. You can't silence me. This is America." But the crowd had had enough. "Get her out!" Someone shouted. Cheers followed. Stomps echoed like thunder on the gym floor. The graduating seniors started chanting in unison, their voices rising, "Let US graduate! Let US graduate!" Karen's face went pale. For a second, just a second, she realized the room wasn't hers to control. And then security yanked the mic from her hands. She wailed, her voice breaking, but the sound cut off when the speakers finally went silent. Dragged by her arms, her heels screeching against the floor, Karen thrashed like a wild animal. But every step toward the exit was met with louder cheers. Parents clapped. Students raised their diplomas high like swords, reclaiming their moment. The door slammed behind her with a heavy boom. And just like that, peace. But oh, it wasn't over. 10 minutes later, as the principal tried to reset the ceremony, an announcement came over the PA system. Clear. Cold. Final. Attention. The individual who disrupted this event has been permanently banned from all future school functions. Effective immediately. Security footage will be turned over to authorities for review. A ripple of relief swept through the gym. My brother finally smiled, tears brimming his eyes. When his row rose to toss their caps, the roar was deafening. The memory had been scarred. Sure. But the recovery, the reclaiming, made it even stronger. Later that night, videos of Karen's outburst went viral. Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, you name it. She was trending. Graduation Grinch. Mike Hog Karen. Memes sprouted like wildfire. One clip even caught the exact moment her heels dragged across the floor. Her face twisted in shock as the crowd chanted against her. And the kicker. Turns out she wasn't just some random woman. She was the Homeowners Association president of a nearby community. The same Karen known for harassing neighbors about lawn heights, holiday lights, even kids' sidewalk chalk. The internet loved digging that up. Emails leaked. Complaints surfaced. Her entire kingdom of control came crumbling down overnight. She had tried to hijack a graduation, but instead she hijacked her own reputation and destroyed it. I'll never forget the sound of that door slamming behind her. The boom that ended her reign of chaos. My brother got his moment back. The graduates got their victory. And Karen, she got banned. For life. And maybe that's the truest justice of all. The stage she tried to steal will never, ever belong to her. Because sometimes karma doesn't whisper. It roars in front of a crowd. She parked 3 trucks in our driveway like she owned the damn place, no heads up. No knock. Just took over our home like it was a Walmart lot. And when Grandpa saw her strutting around in flip-flops and a clipboard like she was General Patton, he locked her in with chains and called the sheriff. Yeah, you heard that right. I wish I could say this was an overreaction, but once you meet Karen, you'll understand why Grandpa, war vet and all, didn't even blink before going full Fort Knox on her tail. The thing is, this didn't come out of nowhere. It was a hot July morning, the kind where the pavement burns through your flip-flops, when it all kicked off. Grandpa had just returned from his weekly fishing trip, the one he takes religiously every Thursday with his rusty tackle box and that thermos he never washes. He pulled up the gravel path humming Johnny Cash, only to slam on the brakes halfway up the drive. 3 brand new Ford F-150s were parked across our yard and the full length of our driveway, shiny, aggressive, like they were posing for a damn car commercial, blocking everything, including his ramp. Now, let me back up a sec. Grandpa's not just a proud old man, he's a triple amputee Navy vet who rebuilt this house after my grandma passed. That ramp? That's not decoration. This is lifeline. He sat there for a second, engine idling, eyebrows twitching like they do when something's about to go sideways. Then he spotted her. Karen. Real name Melissa Vanderbrook, but everyone calls her Karen. Even her mailman, and that guy's half blind. She was standing in our yard on our porch, technically yapping into a Bluetooth headset, swinging her latte like a baton. She didn't even glance at Grandpa when he rolled down his window and said, real quiet but firm, "You mind explaining what the hell this is?" She turned, smiled like she was selling real estate and said, "Oh, you must be the tenant. I needed overflow parking for the committee meeting tonight. Don't worry. It's HOA business, you'll be fine." Tenant. Grandpa blinked like someone slapped him with a fish. "Ma'am, this is my property. I've owned it since 1972. Nobody asked you to park here." Karen's smile didn't fade, in fact. It got wider. More teeth. "Well, we're all part of the HOA now, and your property is considered shared under our new easement rules. Didn't you read the newsletter?" That's when it hit me. She thought she was running a real HOA, except there isn't one. Our street doesn't have one. Never has. Karen had made it up. Created forms, logos, even a fake website that looked like a discount insurance scam. And now, she was using it to commandeer Grandpa's land. He didn't argue, didn't yell, didn't say a word, just backed up his truck, rolled slowly toward the barn, and disappeared inside. 15 minutes later, I heard the click. The unmistakable, metallic scrape of chain over latch, then a padlock snapping shut. Karen didn't notice right away. She was still playing Queen Bee, directing some dude in khakis to park straighter. But when she tried to get back in her truck and the chain clinked across the bumper, she froze. She looked down, then around, and realized something was very, very wrong. That's when Grandpa reappeared. He stood at the edge of the barn in his worn-out army tee, arms crossed, not saying a word, just watching, silent like a damn ghost. You could hear the cicadas buzzing in the heat. Karen stormed across the grass in wedges that weren't made for uneven ground, shouting, "You can't do this! This is illegal detainment." Grandpa raised a brow. "So is trespassing, and forgery, and impersonating an HOA. You want to keep shouting? Or should I call the sheriff?" She went pale. For the first time since moving in 3 months ago, Karen shut up. But here's the twist. She tried to call his bluff. Pulled out her phone, dialed 911, and with full-on drama yelled, "Help! I'm being held hostage by a man with military weapons." That was her mistake. Because when the sheriff showed up, lights flashing, sirens screaming, he didn't cuff Grandpa. Nope. He stepped out of his cruiser, looked at the chains, looked at Karen, and said with a sigh, "Melissa, again?" Apparently, this wasn't her first rodeo. The deputy's tone said it all, weary, mildly entertained, and absolutely not surprised. "Melissa, again?" he muttered, scribbling something in his notepad like this was just another Tuesday in small-town drama, USA. Karen, or Melissa Vanderbrook of the self-appointed HOA, as she fancied herself, spun toward him, face redder than a sunburned tomato. "He locked me in, with chains. That's unlawful imprisonment. And he's got weapons. I demand you arrest him." But the sheriff didn't even flinch. He glanced at the padlock chain looping through all 3 trucks' bumpers and then looked at Grandpa, still calm as a rattlesnake in the shade. "Were these vehicles on your property, Mr. Carter?" Grandpa nodded once. "Blocking my ramp. Couldn't even get inside." "Did you give permission for them to park here?" Grandpa let out the softest, driest chuckle. "She never asked. Just showed up like she owns the joint." Karen gasped like she'd been slapped with a fish. "That's a lie. I notified him via HOA email. The parking variance was clearly posted in our bylaws." The sheriff blinked, then sighed again. "Ma'am, we've been over this. There is no recognized HOA on this street. You made that up. We told you that after the 4th of July incident." "Oh, right. The fireworks." Back then, Karen had tried to fine 3 families for illegal firework display coordination. Problem was, those families included a retired firefighter, a city councilman, and you guessed it, the sheriff's sister. So that backfired real quick. Anyway, Karen was sputtering now, trying to recover. But the bylaws. The board approved." "What board?" the sheriff asked deadpan. "You're the only member, Melissa." She paused, glared, then tried to pivot. "Well, he still chained my trucks. That's vandalism." The sheriff raised an eyebrow and looked again at the padlocks, neat, clean, and looped through the towing mounts. "Nah, I call that secure parking." I swear I saw Grandpa smirk. Then came the part I'll never forget. The sheriff took off his sunglasses, looked Karen dead in the eyes and said, "Ma'am, you've got 2 choices. call a tow company and get your trucks legally removed after paying a trespassing fine, or keep going and we talk about criminal impersonation of a legal entity. Karen opened her mouth, then closed it. Twice. Grandpa, still calm as ever, said, "Better pick quick, darlin'. That sun's gonna start warping your dashboards." I don't know what broke her first, the heat, the sheriff, or the realization that her power fantasy had just gotten kneecapped by a man with one leg and zero tolerance for nonsense. But she finally turned on her heel, got in her friend's car, and drove off. Didn't even look back. 2 hours later, a tow truck rolled up. But the story doesn't end there. Nope, because when the sheriff ran the plates on Karen's little HOA fleet, one came back registered to a landscaping company flagged in another county for fraudulent billing. Turns out this wasn't just a petty power trip. Karen had been invoicing neighbors for mandatory HOA landscaping, collecting cash in person, and then pocketing it through her friend's company. She'd even made folks sign contracts she claimed were required by law. The sheriff's eyes lit up when he heard that. "You have any of those forms?" he asked Grandpa. "Got 3 of 'em," Grandpa said, walking back to the barn like he'd just pulled an ace out of his boot. He handed over carbon copies of the fake contracts complete with Karen's signature and a fake HOA stamp she'd clearly designed in Canva. I mean, it literally had clip art roses around the text. Roses. By sundown, the sheriff was on the horn with county investigators. Karen, bless her heart, had turned our sleepy street into the center of a fraud case. The best part? That committee meeting she scheduled? The one she parked 3 trucks for? Yeah, that was meant to be her big moment, a neighborhood compliance hearing, where she'd planned to fine Grandpa $800 for unregistered mobility infrastructure. That's right. She was trying to fine him for his wheelchair ramp. Sick, right? But thanks to Grandpa's lock and call combo move, her whole fake empire crumbled before the first gavel could drop. And as word spread through town, something shifted. Folks who'd been tiptoeing around Karen suddenly found their spine. Miss Nora next door marched over with lemonade and said, "If I knew she was harassing you, I'd have spoken up sooner." The Rodriguez boys spent the next weekend painting Grandpa's fence for free. Even the mailman, half blind and all, shook Grandpa's hand and said, "She always rubbed me the wrong way. Good on you, Karen." Last we heard, she's under investigation for fraud, misrepresentation, and get this, elder intimidation. Her trucks are gone, her little clipboards confiscated, and her fake HOA website redirects to a cat meme now. Sometimes the good guys don't just win, they lock down the driveway and make a statement doing it. What would you have done in Grandpa's boots? If this gave you life, drop a comment below and hit that subscribe. We've got more justice served hot coming your way. She blocked a floodgate during a Category 3 storm. I mean, who the hell does that? Hoakaren locked the dam control room, and before the county could even respond, the Coast Guard was already deploying a cutter. It started around 3:18 a.m., that dead silent hour when the world feels half asleep, and the air tastes electric before something terrible happens. I was already up, pacing in the kitchen, staring at radar loops on my laptop while my wife Sam stood by the back window, chewing a thumbnail and muttering to herself. We both knew the storm was going to make landfall farther north than predicted, which meant the floodplain behind our house, normally a scenic patch of cattails and mosquito paradise, was about to turn into a lake. A roaring, filthy, furniture-tossing lake. Now, to be clear, I'm not new to this game. I'm an engineer with the Army Corps of Engineers. My job is literally disaster mitigation. Sam's a stormwater planner with the city. Between the two of us, we've written every emergency plan this county's got, including the one Karen just ripped to shreds with a rusty padlock and a folding chair. See, the HOA doesn't own the floodgate. It's technically on easement land. But Karen Wexley, president of the Highwater Ridge HOA for 6 consecutive, cursed years, decided last fall that the floodgate invited vagrants and reduced curb appeal. So she slapped a no-access sign on it and changed the locks. We warned her, in writing, with maps, diagrams, and a very polite letter from the city engineer's office. But she ignored it, said she didn't recognize the jurisdiction. So here we are. I'm dripping sweat in the kitchen from nerves and humidity. Sam's dialing her 3rd emergency contact, and our backyard already looks like the Everglades. When the levee breach siren wails 2 miles down the ridge, my stomach flips. We need that gate open now, I mutter. Sam's already moving, pulling on boots, grabbing the emergency binder. She's cool under pressure, calm voice, clipped steps, but I can see the muscle in her jaw twitching. That's how I know she's furious. I'm calling the county again, she says. Then I'm calling 911. Then I'm calling Captain Alvarez. Captain Alvarez is with the Coast Guard. He officiated our wedding, and he owes us a favor. Cut to 10 minutes later, out the door with floodlights bouncing off the water, which is now climbing up the back trail faster than I can process. I grab the bolt cutters, Sam grabs the municipal access key, and we're jogging through 6 inches of rising muck. And then we see her, Karen, in her floral robe, hair rollers, slippers, standing in front of the floodgate control room like she's guarding Buckingham Palace. You can't be here, she shrieks, pointing like some low-budget town crier. Karen, I snap. The retention pond's about to overtop. You need to move. This is private property. You're trespassing under HOA. Shut up and move, Karen. She stands her ground. I swear to God, I think she believed she was saving the neighborhood. From us, from science, from FEMA. Sam flips on her city badge, but Karen swats at the light like it's a mosquito. Fake ID, she mutters. I'm calling the board. You want a board? Try a 4-ton steel floodgate slamming into your dining room. Thunder cracks overhead like God's personal mic drop. And in that exact moment, my phone buzzes. Coast Guard. ETA 6 minutes. Water depth sensors showing critical rise. I take a step toward Karen, but she steps back and slams the padlock shut, literally locking herself inside the control room. She thinks she's protecting it. No, scratch that, she thinks we're the danger. And that's when the twist hits. Headlights. Not just headlights. Red, white, and blue strobes cutting through the rain. And out of the mist rolls the sharp, armored nose of a Coast Guard rapid response vehicle, crunching gravel like a warning shot. Then a second vehicle behind it. Then a 29-foot response boat, small, pulling up into the overflow channel like Poseidon himself showed up for roll call. I turned to Sam. Did you tell Alvarez what was happening? I told him our neighbor was interfering with emergency infrastructure. You told him Karen blocked a federal floodgate? Sam just nods. And then the loudspeaker crackles. This is the United States Coast Guard. Step away from the structure immediately. Karen doesn't move. She peeks through the window like a squirrel sniffing a bear trap. Karen didn't move. She stood inside that tiny floodgate control shack, nose against the glass like a cat in a thunderstorm, confused, wide-eyed, still holding on to that last thread of imagined authority. You know that look people get when the real world finally crashes through their delusion like a brick through stained glass? Yeah, that was her face. The Coast Guard boat engine idled low in the overflow channel behind us, its red and blue strobes painting the rising water like a war zone. A tall officer stepped out of the first vehicle, cutter-class uniform, tactical gloves, clipboard already in hand. Captain Alvarez. I'd seen him yell at senators in emergency hearings. Karen was about to learn what happens when you cross a man who uses flood maps the way other people use menus. Sir, ma'am, he said, nodding to us with professional calm. Is she the one who interfered with gate operations? She changed the locks, Sam said, breath tight. She also sent HOA notices warning residents not to enter. Claimed jurisdiction over the easement. Alvarez's jaw flexed. Of course she did. Then he turned to the shack. Ma'am, he called out, voice booming like a loudspeaker even though he wasn't using one. This is federal infrastructure. You are unlawfully obstructing emergency flood mitigation efforts. Step out of the structure immediately. Karen finally unlocked the door, but only halfway. She stuck her head out like a cartoon villain and screamed, "This is private HOA land. You have no right." Before she could finish, a second Coast Guard officer strode forward with a bolt cutter the size of a toddler. 2 snips and the lock dropped into the mud. Karen gasped like someone had just defiled a sacred relic. "You'll regret this," she shrieked. "You people are violating." "Ma'am," Alvarez cut her off. "You're interfering with active federal response during an extreme weather event. That carries a prison sentence. You will be detained if you don't step away now. And finally Karen broke. Not in some dramatic fainting way. Not even a tantrum. Just silence. She stumbled back out, soaking wet robe clinging to her legs, muttering something about bylaws and property values, and then sat down on the curb. Just like that, like a balloon finally losing air. Alvarez didn't waste a breath. He waved his team forward. One officer hit the breakers, another began toggling the control system. Within 30 seconds, the gate groaned, lifted, and the floodwaters surged through the channel like a charging bull. The pressure release was instant, you could hear it, this guttural whoosh as the overflow finally had somewhere to go. Sam exhaled hard. I realized I'd been holding my breath too. You got this under control? I asked Alvarez. He nodded. We'll have the system monitored through sunrise. We've also contacted FEMA and your county emergency ops. But we'll need statements. He glanced toward Karen, who was now just rocking slowly on the curb, mascara running down her cheeks like war paint in retreat. She said this was about curb appeal, Sam muttered, crossing her arms. She almost flooded half the ridge. And probably voided your city's insurance rating, Alvarez added. She'll be answering for that. The kicker? Karen wasn't even listed on the deed. The control room sat on a federally documented easement the HOA had no jurisdiction over. She'd created her own map, added it to the HOA newsletter, and convinced a bunch of clueless board members it was real. And then came the twist I didn't expect. As Alvarez took our statements, another woman approached from the Showdown, a thin, gray-haired lady with a windbreaker and clipboard. Name's Rita, she said. I'm with FEMA's Office of Disaster Preparedness. Got wind of this through Coast Guard comms. Mind if I take a look at that newsletter she sent out? Sam handed it over. Rita scanned it, her face tightening by the second. This is fabricated, she said flatly. She forged signatures from 2 state engineers. That's mail fraud and emergency obstruction. She's going to federal court. Karen started to cry then. Loud, hiccuping sobs that echoed off the wet pavement. Alvarez didn't flinch. Let her cry, he said. She nearly turned this ridge into a death trap. The next morning, the sun rose bright over Highwater Ridge. The waters had receded just enough to avoid catastrophe. And Karen Wexley? She was nowhere to be seen. Her husband loaded bags into an Uber while she was inside packing under supervision of a sheriff's deputy. We stood on our porch, sipping burnt coffee, exhausted but oddly peaceful. Birds were chirping again. Someone down the street was blasting, "Here comes the sun." And then Sam turned to me, smiling. She blocked a floodgate. I laughed. And got steamrolled by the U.S. Coast Guard. Some people learn by reading, some by watching. But folks like Karen? They only learn when the water rises. And someone finally opens the damn gate. So what do you think, should Karen face jail time? Or was that floodgate showdown punishment enough? Hit subscribe for more wild neighborhood justice cause next week. We've got a story where the HOA paved over someone's well and hit oil instead. She called the cops before I even shut my car door, said I looked governmental. Yeah. I hadn't even stepped onto the porch of my own lake house. And already the HOA president was dialing 911. What she didn't expect was that I brought the state attorney general's special investigations team with me. It was supposed to be a peaceful return, you know. Me coming back to my family's cabin after years overseas, just to get some quiet. Instead, I got a welcome party with red and blue flashing lights, and a nosy blonde named Cheryl Barkley screaming across the cul-de-sac like she was head of Homeland Security. God help us. You can't be here, she shrieked, arms waving, clipboard flapping like she was trying to fly away. This is a secure community under HOA protection, and I don't recognize your vehicle. I blinked, jet-lagged, still holding my car keys. Ma'am, I muttered. I own this property. The deed's in my name. Literally carved into the mailbox you just yanked out. She didn't care. Cheryl was the kind of woman who smelled perceived authority and ran with it like a dog chasing a lawnmower. Before I could show her my ID, she was calling in a suspicious male in tactical boots, possibly armed. I wasn't even wearing boots, just Timberlands. and a hoodie, but I guess that's enough to activate Karen protocols. So I sighed, reached into my glove box not for a weapon, but for the folder. The one marked AGSCU, Attorney General's Special Cases Unit. But I didn't open it yet. No, I waited. 2 sheriff cruisers rolled up about 5 minutes later, lights flashing, Cheryl flapping beside them like a frantic traffic cone. That's him, right there. He's been circling the lake lot, probably planning something. I heard hammering sounds this morning. Hammering? You mean me hanging birdhouses? I don't know what was more embarrassing, her hysteria or the fact she was narrating it to half the street now peeking from behind curtains like it was some free Netflix drama. The officer stepped out, young guy, mid-30s, looked tired already. Sir, we've had a complaint about trespassing. Can we see some ID? I didn't even flinch, just nodded and handed him my license. Then, slowly, deliberately, I handed him the second item. A black badge holder.
Goldseal.
Embossed. Official. Deputy Director Elijah Monroe, Office of State Attorney General. The cop's eyebrows disappeared into his hairline. Sir, wait. He turned the ID over. You're with the Special Crimes. Correct, I said evenly. And this is my property. Cheryl's HOA has no jurisdiction here. And she just called in a false report on a member of a state legal team. You might want to take a note of that. And that's when Cheryl started hyperventilating. She backed up so fast she nearly tripped on her own wedges, arms flailing, that red manicure flashing like sirens. I didn't know, Cheryl stammered, eyes darting from the officers to me like she was suddenly seeing ghosts. I thought he looked. How was I supposed to know? How were you supposed to know? I echoed, my voice calm, just loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear. Maybe by not calling the cops on a homeowner who hadn't done a damn thing wrong. The younger deputy cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. His partner, older guy with salt and pepper hair and a stare like cold steel, stepped forward. Ms. Barkley, he said flatly, you reported an armed trespasser. This man's identification checks out and his credentials are above even ours. Above, even, ours. Cheryl's jaw dropped so fast I thought she might lose a crown. Still, she tried to regain footing, metaphorical and literal. Well, the HOA needs to know who's coming and going. This is a gated community. It's not, I replied deadpan. This road is county maintained. Your HOA has no legal authority over my property. Cheryl. No covenants, no easements, no shared utilities. Nothing. I could hear murmurs from the neighbors now. Mr. and Mrs. Dobson whispering on their porch. Little Mrs. Huynh filming with her phone from behind a flower pot. It was starting to spread, the realization that Cheryl's power trip had a dead end. But you don't understand. Cheryl tried one last time, eyes wide and wild. We've had issues. People sneaking onto the lakefront. We have rules. I'm the president. I stepped a little closer, lowering my voice. Cheryl, I know exactly what you've been doing. I know about the illegal dues you've been collecting from properties outside your jurisdiction. I know about the altered invoices. I know you added security patrol fees last year, but contracted your own nephew without a license. She went still. Dead. Still. And I could feel the shift like a storm cloud sucking the air out of the cul-de-sac. You don't know what you're talking about, she muttered. But her voice didn't have teeth anymore. Oh, but I do, I said, flipping open the folder. And so does the Attorney General's office. You're listed in an ongoing state-level probe for fraudulent HOA enforcement practices across 3 lake communities. Your name just moved up the list. I let the words hang there like the end of a sentence she couldn't finish. Then like clockwork, one of the unmarked SUVs pulled up. 2 plainclothes agents stepped out. Calm. Clipped, earpieces in. One gave me a subtle nod. Director Monroe, he said. Your team is staged and ready. Want us to begin interviews? Cheryl literally gasped. Interviews? She echoed. Oh yeah, I said, glancing at the growing crowd. We're canvassing. You see, you've been filing liens on non-HOA properties, issuing fake violations, even threatening legal action against folks who didn't sign any covenants. That's wire fraud if you did it by mail. Extortion if you threatened it. And if any of those funds were used for personal gain. Her lips quivered. Then we're talking grand larceny. State charges. Maybe federal. Depends how deep this hole goes. Cheryl swayed slightly, like her heels were finally giving up. I need to make some calls, she whispered. You do that, I said coolly. But don't leave the county. The older deputy turned to me, finally speaking. Sir, would you like us to stay on site while you and your team conduct interviews? Nah, I said, waving it off. We're covered. But if Ms. Barkley tries to intimidate any residents during this process, you'll be hearing from my office again. Loudly. And just like that, the sirens were gone. The neighbors began to disperse, but not before a few paused to clap me on the shoulder, whisper thanks, or shoot Cheryl a glare that could melt asphalt. Funny how fast loyalty dries up when receipts hit the pavement. By the time the sun began to dip behind the pines, Cheryl was locked inside her overpriced cottage, blinds pulled tight. Her husband, whom I'd never even seen in daylight, was dragging garbage bags to the curb like he was escaping a crime scene. Meanwhile, my team was already in my cabin, laptops out, documents spread across the table like the war room it was. And me? I just leaned back in a porch chair, sipping a beer from a bottle I hadn't touched in 2 years. You good? One of the agents asked. I exhaled long, slow, and easy. Better than good, I said. I just took down a fake queen on a plastic throne. Let's see what else she's hiding. So what would you do if your neighbor weaponized a fake HOA against you? Drop your stories below and hit that subscribe button. 'Cause trust me, this story's just heating up.